everybody. Welcome back to another box office recap. Hope you guys have been enjoying the content on the channel as of late. Here we are at the beginning of the year with our box office recap. Of course, if you followed this channel for the past few months, we did some box office recaps last year, pretty much, yeah, all of last year. And last year was not particularly great. So we are now back with box office recaps, now looking into the year that is 2026. So we just got off January a few days ago, so now we're going to check out what happened in January. So before we get started, as I always do, I'm going to give you guys my view on how I judge box office. And you can see that the rules are a little bit different this time because this past year I had been more invested into box office, seeing how you judge things, and ultimately how to assess it. So this is how I feel you should now look at it, and this is I feel the proper way to look at it now. So there is production and then there is marketing. That combined total of that investment, you do 2 times that, and that is where you will see the break-even point of what that film needs to make. But you also need to account for theatrical distribution, which it involves ticket sales, and cuts between, the theater chains, usually around 50% cut. So then you have to consider now that what you make off of the movie bare minimum may in fact be only what you receive from the theaters potentially. So in order for the movie with distribution involved to really do well, the film has to do about 4 times its investment cost. So say a film cost $100 million, its break-even point would be $200 million. In reality, though, with distribution involved, times that by 2 again, the film would need to do $400 million in order for the studio to see a true return on investment. So that's how I'm considering this, and you'll see as we move along how that all makes sense. I do include, of course, any publicly known marketing expenses or anything relating to it, like reshoots, whatever. And if that information is not available, I'm just judging purely by the production alone. So, or by what information is out there. So hopefully this all makes sense. But let's check out how January was and see where things are falling for this year so far. So let's get into it. So first film we're going to look at is We Buried the Dead. This was a zombie film that starred Daisy Ridley, Rey from Star Wars. And as you can tell from here, I'm just going to move this out of the way real quick. As you can tell from here, did not do well at all. It was released on January 2nd. At least it had a wider release on the 2nd. Vertical is the distributor on this one. And there's no real largely known expenses. As far as I read, the production was less than 15 million. So I'm saying maybe 10 million. So 10 million I'm putting for budget. Don't know anything about the marketing, so as it stands, at the $10 million investment. So the break-even point would have to be 20 million, but in order for that 20 million to come back to the studio, the movie would have to generate at least $40 million. On a theatrical gross, it has made $3.74 million. So the studio Vertical has seen about either 1.86 million or as high as $2.05 million come back to them. So obviously this was a big fail. I think it was largely because there wasn't a whole lot of marketing attached to this, and it already had come out in a limited window. Usually, for some reason, they don't produce more marketing after they do a limited release. At least I don't usually see that often nowadays. So I just think this was a victim of just lack of marketing and lack of care in that department. So next film we're gonna look at is as I click here real quick. My bad. Primates. This would be probably the first, I would say, notable release this year, because this was there was a little bit of marketing that was attached to this, but did not pay off, unfortunately. Primate, as far as we can tell, had a $24 million budget. We don't exactly know the marketing expenses, at least as far as I read. So 24 million on this end. Break even point on this would be 48 million, but the movie would have to generate at least 96 million in order to see that 48 million come back to the studio. In this case, the distributor being Paramount Pictures. On a theatrical gross, it made 36.44 million, and so far, Paramount has likely seen 17.09 million, or as high as 18.34 million, or obviously, more or less the studio who made this movie, Paramount, just being a distributor. I don't know if they're a financer, but yeah, did not work. Did not work. I think that might have been a lot to do with just perception and also just concept. It's very, it's very primitive, if you get my understanding. It's not. It doesn't have a lot to it. It's like just basically a slasher with a monkey and or a chimpanzee. My apologies. Um, so yeah, so it didn't seem to really resonate with a lot of people, and it just it's again one of those cases where small budgeted things sometimes don't usually will pay off, because in the case of horror, it really has to be something specific in concept that will get people to come see their films. In this case, a chimpanzee acting as a slasher sounds more funny than horrific, at least if you ask me. All right, next film is Greenland 2 Migration. This also came out on the 9th, same as Primate did. This was distributed by Lionsgate, and this one has a little bit more of a bigger price tag attached to it, this one being $90 million. We don't know exactly the marketing expenses on this end, so $90 million as it stands. So break-even point on this would have to be at least $180 million. Gross requirement would have to be at least $360 million. So theatrically speaking, on a theatrical gross alone, $24.63 million. Yeah. And Lionsgate, or I'm just like an STX Films, probably, who are the financiers behind this, they're collecting around at least 11.62 million, or as high as 12.5 million. So yeah, this was a big failure. I don't know who the hell was asking for a sequel. I think that the only reason why, as far as I looked into, that this film got a sequel was because it was one of the few films in the year of 2020 that did relatively that financially pulled in more than others. I don't know if it exactly made money, but it pulled more than other films that came out that year, because obviously the pandemic was at a high at that point. I think that that rationale is very poor, and I just don't see why they thought to do another one. And clearly, no one cared to see it. So, and again, just adds to the pile of just Lionsgate's, just misfires. Lionsgate last year did not have a great year, and they're not off on the right foot. And I mean, it's January, so it's a dumping ground month. As you'll see as we play out this video. But yeah, I don't see why this had to be made. It just feels like that they examined something very specifically and then just kind of ran with it. And clearly, it didn't pay off. So, all right, next film we're going to check out is Dead Man's Wire. I actually did want to see this, but I never got around to to checking it out. This is Gus Van Sant's latest film. Stars Bill Skarsgård. It's basically like a Dog Day Afternoon type deal. Al Pacino even conveniently stars in it. This has a budget, as far as I can tell, at least like 10 million. Again, I think like kind of like We Bury the Dead, or maybe I'm thinking about this film, where this is less than 15 million. So I suppose around like 10 million, I'm gonna say. So break even point on this would have to be 20 million. We don't know any marketing expenses attached to this. Gross requirement would be around 40 million. Theatrically speaking, it's made about $2.11 million. Yeah. Studio wise, this case, RK Roque Entertainment being a distributor. potentially collected at least 1.05 million or as high as 1.15 million. So yeah, this also failed pretty bad too. I think this is similar to the case of We Bury the Dead, where this was just a lack of marketing. Just don't think that they cared to advertise it too much. Because I heard decent things about it, but I just don't think that they cared to market it too much. And when you don't give people the awareness, they're just not going to come and see it. All right, next film we're going to look at is 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. This is probably the major release that came out this past month, or at least the most notable one. This had a budget of at least 63 million and additional marketing expenses of at least 70 million, according to Deadline. If that wasn't a typo that I read. So this puts the investment as high as $133 million, with a break-even point needing of at least 266 million. But with distribution involved with the theaters and ticket sales being 50%, the movie would need to gross at least $532 million in order to secure that investment. So theatrical gross, $53.77 million. And studio-wise, in this case Sony, $23.88 million, or as high as $25.07 million. Yeah, so this was a failure as well. I think that twofold on this. One, I think was just way too much when it comes to marketing expenses. They should not have spent as much as they did. I think that's what kind of has killed a lot of the potential for what this movie could be making. And the trajectory of excuse me, sorry, the trajectory of of seeing a return on investment is a lot slimmer now because of where they're at with costs and stuff. And for another, the original film didn't do well. I mean, last year, when you really look at 28 Years Later, it really didn't do all that great. So I think that the series as it stands also, I think, is probably it's not super popular. It's a very crowded genre. At this point, it's not one that is like been dead for so long. I mean, we see these sort of stories told many times. So being one of the originators of that doesn't exactly mean that the quality is going to go up. It just means that or at least one of the more modern examples of a zombie flick, one of the more popular versions of it in the modern era, does not necessarily mean that it's going to work or resonate. So, yeah, I also feel bad for the director on this. This was, I believe, Nia DaCosta. I believe that's her name. She is the one who directed The Marvels, which was also a major failure for Disney. So, yeah, I just feel bad for her. She's been involved in two franchises now, and both of which have seemingly tanked. So, yeah, so I just feel bad for her. So hopefully she bounces back. But apparently you guys will be getting the third of this supposed trilogy, so don't know why. And I think that the third indication that I think that the Sony is not feeling confident about the series, this thing came out in January. Remember, the original film 28 Years Later came out in June. So they were more confident there. Whereas with this, they dumped it in January. So that should also tell you something. So yeah, another failure for just another failure for this month, man. So you sense a pattern for me. Now, if you believe that pattern, we'll continue with our next film, which is Mercy. This also didn't do well. Budget here sitting around 60 million, so not as pricey as I thought it was going to be. I thought this was around like 100 million or something. But we don't know the marketing expenses attached to this, so this probably is leaning more towards 100 million, we'll say. But as it stands, 60 million in terms of an investment, so times that by two, it'd have to do about 120 million, and then gross requirement, so it would need to do 240 million in order for, in this case, Amazon to see that break-even point. met. Theatrical gross, we're looking at 41.17 million. And in this case, Amazon is seeing about 18.42 million, or as high as $19.4 million going back to them. Yeah, dude, I don't know who was really caring to see this. This just, it's doesn't have a lot of innovation to it. I get they're trying to speak on a specific issue, trying to relate in that context, but it just doesn't seem like that there's a whole lot of activity in play here, and just it just seems very hollow, you know. But again, as tradition with Amazon, it's not about what it does in theaters; it's about what it does on streaming. So don't ask them why they put it in theaters. That's not what's important. What's important is what it does on streaming. So you know, so par for the course for Amazon, where their stuff has lately not been working. All right, next film we're going to look at is Return to Silent Hill. Of course, this is adapted from the video game with the same name, as well as, of course, I believe a follow-up from the original film, but came out in the early 2000s. This was distributed by Cineverse. Came out on the 23rd, same weekend as Mercy. Yeah, and then 28 years later, it came out on the 16th. So, just so we know the timeline here. Budget sitting around 23 million. We don't know the marketing expenses on this end, but 23 million. 46 million is where it would need to break even. Gross requirement at least 92 million. So theatrically speaking, it's made about 10.73 million. And in this case, Cineverse or whoever is involved, financiers, Konami, I don't know, looking at the poster. They're looking at 4.79 million or as high as 5.05 million come back to them. Another failure. Just another failure. I think that this is another lack of marketing, in my opinion. I just don't recall any marketing outside of a really shoddy trailer that I saw for it. Um, yeah, it just there wasn't a lot of attention for it given in the marketing, and I honestly think that if you had given a bigger marketing push, I think that this probably would have done a little bit more. Nowhere near where it needs to make, but I think that it would have done a little bit more. So, as stands, there was a lack of attention or lack of attention given to it, and it suffered as a result. So, next thing we're going to look at is Iron Lung. So we talked about Iron Lung, and we talked about, of course, the success that it is with Iron Lung. And now we can get more into detail about it because Iron Lung, of course, as we talked about in the video, is a film self-financed and distributed by a YouTuber named Markiplier. And as you can tell, he's done very, very well for himself. Budget of at least 3 million. We don't know any marketing expenses. As far as I read, it's like in the thousands range, nowhere close to like what studio spending is. So investment wise, like again, 3 million, break even, at least 6 million. So gross requirement, the film would have to do at least 12 million in order to see that return on investment. Theatrically speaking, it's gone on to do $20.8 million. So Markiplier Studios, his company, is looking at $10.1 million or as high as $10.99 million, potentially going back to him after, of course, considerations with ticket sales and stuff like that. That number might be a little bit lower, but he's eating good. He's eating good. At least his company is eating good. And yeah, I think this is largely to do with just investment. It's a very, very small investment. Really did not need to do much of anything. And I think the social media push also helped a little bit as well. And yeah, like I said before in my video, though, I'm not going to come out and say, like, oh, well, this is how you should make movies and stuff like that. Because I've seen some people framing it. I think even he's been framing it that way. I wouldn't frame it like that. I would look at it more as like, this is a great starting point. for a potential career if you want to pursue that. But it doesn't just all of a sudden change the norm for how movies are made. This is just an instance of, somebody who is popular on YouTube branching out and, getting the results that he wanted because of, staying low on the budget and playing with a concept of genre like horror. It's gonna more than likely get people to come see your movie because horror is, the much more desired option in theaters. So yeah, I mean, great for him, and the first success of the year, which is very, which is cool, which is cool. Coming out the same weekend as Iron Lung, we have Melania, which was the documentary involving Donald Trump's wife, distributed through Amazon, and yeah, this didn't do well. Production sitting of at least 40 million. Marketing expenses, as far as I read, an additional 35 million. So investment wise, we're looking at $75 million. So break even point on those would be 150 million. Gross requirement would need to be at least 300 million. Theatrically speaking, $8.2 million. Yeah. So studio wise, Amazon in this case, 4.09 million, or as high as $4.47 million is going back to them. Now, keep in mind, this is the film that got the director of this. I believe it's Brett Ratner. This is the film that got him Rush Hour 4, the one that Donald Trump forced to get made. Um, so, probably also the promise of a theatrical window as well, probably for Melania as well. Because I don't see why Amazon put this out in theaters. I would assume that they knew that this wouldn't have done well, and the Trump administration maybe was like on their back or something. I don't know because they clearly this was not going to do well. Clearly it wasn't. I mean, politically speaking, it goes without saying. Just with the climate right now, being very heated, I it was very much stacked against itself. So, you know, I, I'm not gonna say the quality is bad or whatever. Obviously, this is gonna be controversial because it's all politically motivated, and or at least is just touching on a public political figure. So, but yeah, I had to imagine that they knew this wouldn't do well, and maybe they were just their hands were tied, but. But yeah, Amazon again. You guys need to reassess your theatrical uh, slate because clearly it's not working. Clearly it's not. So, okay, next film we're going to look at is Send Help. This was the other film that came out alongside Iron Lung and Melania. This is Sam Raimi's latest film, starring Rachel McAdams and Dylan O'Brien. This had a budget of at least 40 million, so a little more pricey compared to Iron Lung. Investment wise, I was looking at 40 million still because we don't have any marketing expenses attached to it. Break even point on this would have to be 80 million, and then a gross requirement of at least 160 million. Theatrically speaking, it's done about $28.63 million. And studio wise, in this case, Disney, because it's 20th Century Fox Studios, so under the Disney umbrella. Potentially making at least 13.5 million or as high as 14.53 million dollars. So, yeah, horror has not been great this month. Again, it is January, so it is usually the dumping ground, and also a lot of people are not coming in waves in this specific time period. A lot of people are just getting back home, settling in from holidays, and like getting back to work. All sorts of factors play into this. But that being said, the releases also, uh, you know, can be a persuading factor, and it seems as though the people were not as keen on seeing this. Again, probably the simplicity of the concept. probably was also not as appealing, maybe like similar to Primate, where it's this in this case it's essentially just like a very specific thing, um, but yeah, just didn't work. Just didn't work as far as I can tell. So my bad. My brother just got home, so but yeah, I think that I think that it was just mainly due to a lack of a strong concept and just just the month in general, just being January, just also probably was not in the film's favor. Send help. So, but moving on from that, we have now Shelter. This is Jason Statham's latest film, and this was distributed through Black Bear Pictures. Came out the same weekend as a bunch of these other movies that I'm mentioning here. That I mentioned here, Iron Lung and Send Help, the other one, which I just forgot the name, Melania. Um, this had a budget of at least 50 million. So we don't know the marketing expenses attached to this, so 50 million as it stands. So break even point on this would have to be 100 million. Times that by two for a gross requirement, so it has to do at least 200 million in order to see a return on investment. Theatrically speaking, it's only done about $14 million. And in this case, Black Bear uh, has seen potentially 6.19 million or as high as $6.48 million. Yeah, I think this is just more to do with a lack of marketing again. A lot of the movies here are not wanting to get marketed for some reason. Sorry, I just gotta put my food down somewhere. Um, but yeah, I don't know what it is. Just this month there was not a whole lot of marketing. I think it's just the cause of the month. It's just a dumping ground. So studios probably just are not as willing to invest in the specific month, and they're just kind of waiting on different films to roll out and push for marketing campaigns on that front. In the case of Shelter, just they didn't care to market it too much, and as a result, not a whole lot of people were aware or cared to check it out. So, all right, next film we're going to look at is The Moment. Uh, yeah, uh, again, no real marketing attached to this. Uh, but this is I guess it's a mockumentary from what I read. So it's not like a documentary. It's, some fictionalized elements, but being represented through a documentarian lens. Um, this was distributed through A24, and this is, about, I forget that, I don't know that singer's name, Charlie's something. I don't know. One of the new singers on the block. Um, $4 million for this investment. We don't know any marketing expenses attached to it. Break-even point on this would have to be 8 million. Gross requirement at least 16 million. Theatrically speaking, $427,000 and 900 or $427,940. A24 probably saw about as low as 213,970 or as high as 235,367. This has flopped. This has flopped hard. Again, I think it's just a lack of marketing, and in the case also just of the subject matter, it's extremely limiting. I mean, I, I just don't think that the stars today, like the type of singers today, I just don't think any of them have wide appeal. Even like the ones that people talk about, like like Bad Bunny and all that jazz, they're not notable. Like a Billie Eilish, it's like, yeah, like they work in their little camps, but they don't branch out into like to other demographics. So doing something like this was always going to be limiting as it stands. Clearly, it didn't get any attention at all, marketing or otherwise. Um, so yeah, so it just I don't think it was ever going to work, even if you had a big marketing campaign attached to it. So my bad. That actually was the last film. I thought for some reason we had another film, but I believe that is 12 films that we have looked at from January. So when you think about all the films that I just mentioned, and considering the success stories from the failures, literally only one film did well this past month, which was Iron Man, and we talked about the success behind that. But yeah, this month it was January. Like it's just kind of how we framed it. It is a dumping ground for studios. It is films that they are not confident in that won't do well, and well, I mean they're not wrong. I mean a lot of these didn't do well, a lot of which also wouldn't have done well, like Greenland 2. I doubt it was going to do well at all. Mercy, Melania, things that just guaranteed were not going to do well, didn't do well. And were dumped in January. Um, a little surprising though that a couple of these horror pieces didn't really resonate. Even Primate, especially, I thought would end up doing a little bit better than it turned out to do. Return to Silent Hill, like I said, I think that if you had more marketing attached to it, I think it would have probably resonated a little bit more, just because you're playing with a notable IP name or notable license. But it's also plays to what I said before, also about original based content. Not resonating a lot with a lot of people. Case in point, films like Dead Man's Wire and Shelter and The Moment. It plays to very specific audiences, especially a film like The Moment. That was, they're right to call it The Moment because it had literally a moment, and that was it. So, but Iron Lung is a indication of just also kind of the appetite of where audiences are today. Just social media is a huge thing. People on YouTube, just that whole space is just kind of the place to right now with take the Gen Zs and the demographics today. And like I said, smaller productions, make for less of a hill to climb. So as it stands, the year right now is, well, 1 to 12. I included The Rip also, the film from Netflix, the one with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. That was like $100 million or something like that, and I guarantee you that that film didn't even come close to making its money back. With that kind of production, it's like no, absolutely not. So yeah, it's not off to the best start, but as I said before, this is January. So this is just par for the course for how January usually is. It's usually, a pretty rough, month because it's the dumping ground for a lot of studios. They don't usually want to market a lot of their products because it's just stuff that they don't have a lot of confidence in. Um, so, so I don't think it's an indication of where things are to go. We'll see how February and March, we'll see how those months play out, and we'll start to get kind of a better understanding of where this year is at. So as it stands, I'm still optimistic. We'll see how the year plays out. But I mean, as it stands, literally, it's not off to the best of starts. But you guys, what are your thoughts in relating to the box office from last month? Do you guys feel it was a good month, or do you guys think how I think, where it was a pretty poor month? Or do you guys feel like I feel also, where it's literally January? It's just how this kind of thing goes. It's par for the course as far as I can tell. But you guys, let me know. Let me know all your thoughts relating in the comment section below. And that's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. And until then, I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.